webinar series collaborated with these two university. Oke, baik. Selanjutnya kami persilahkan kepada Ibu Suharyanti selaku Ketua Program Studi Ilmu Komunikasi untuk menyampaikan atau membuka acara ini. Kepada Ibu Suharyanti kami persilahkan.
Oke, terima kasih Ibu Mirana. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to see all of you today in the webinar of Data Science for PR Professional to increase boundary spanning skill, make it simple. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Bapak Teguh Anantawikrama from ANTV, and I also would like to say thank you to Mr. James Bartle from CQ University Australia, or we used to call Pak James, that both of you are willing to share your knowledge and experience today. And I also thank you, of course, to all of you, the participants, for joining this webinar. This webinar is held as a series of the 10th anniversary of Communication Studies Bakri University, as well as an announcement that in the next following semester, the Communication Studies, in collaboration with CQ University Australia, will open a dual degree program. And also I would like to inform you that currently we are preparing for the opening a master degree in communication in the next following semester. Moreover, this webinar is our effort to always be in line with the needs of the industrial world and the dynamic of communication studies. Once again, thank you very much for joining this webinar, and I hope this webinar will be significantly useful for all of us.
Terima kasih Ibu Yanti. Okay, next we move to our main sessions that we have been waiting for. Our moderator today, Miss Dr. Desikania, Master of Arts. To Miss Dike, silahkan.
Ya, terima kasih Bu Mirana. Hi everybody, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How are you all today? Yeah, I hope everybody is in good condition. Ya, stay healthy pokoknya. Today is very special day because we're going to have a webinar titled Data Science for PR Professional. Okay, to increase boundary spanning skill, make it simple. Okay, we have a very good speakers, yeah, academician as well as practitioner. Okay, our first speaker is from James Bartle, from as an academic director at CQ University Australia. Okay, Prof. James is very what I call research interest is in data science, and interestingly, Prof. James also have been living in Indonesia for quite some time. Yeah, Pak James, yeah.
Benar.
When was it?
I've been living here since for the last 7 years,
Okay.
but I've been coming since 1995.
Okay, so your Indonesian language probably quite smooth for our presentation today.
It's not too bad, but everyone employs me to speak English, so
Okay.
you don't get as much practice as you should.
That's true. Okay. Okay, so let's just move to our material for today. Okay, silakan Pak James.
Okay, now I think someone is going to share. Now I don't know how to actually get the full picture here. Do I do something? Yeah, okay. There we go. Thank you. Someone's going to share my PowerPoint in a moment. Here we go. Thank you. Well, I really don't need to talk about the topic, but I will say I have a little bit of my own agenda here because I'm in love with data. I can't hear you, sorry.
So, Pak James, yeah, just continue.
Okay.
Yes, Pak James.
I'll speak slowly.
Okay.
So yes, I've been in love with data all my life. So let me go to the next screen and I'll tell you what we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about my personal journey. And I always think that case studies are a better way of sharing information and so on. So I'm going to use a case study to talk about how data science works. Okay. My personal journey is this. I think sometimes when we talk about issues, we think some things are very, very new. I'm going to sort of tell you how old I am in a moment. Saya tua, I'm old. I graduated in 1981 with my first degree. And my first degree is econometrics, or if you want to call it statistics. And I've been dealing with this data for a long, long time. But one of the things that we do have is, of course, is that data is becoming more available. So the data I've been using when I first started in banking, so I haven't been an academic all my life, has been in banking, and you had very, very small data sets. And usually when we use that data, being very limited, we could only do two things. Now, we did hypothesis testing or prediction. Now, one of the things that I want to make very clear is that when we do hypothesis testing or prediction, this is called data analysis. So the data is very structured and so on. I'll give you an example. Most people here have either got a credit card or a bank loan of some type. And if you didn't know, most banks use credit scoring for loans. That is, they take your application and they put it into a computer system whereby it actually says whether you are likely to be able to pay back your loan or not. Now, it's quite interesting. I developed a credit scoring system for the Commonwealth Bank of Australia in 1985. And people would say, oh, well, you didn't really have much data then, but actually there was quite a lot of data. When you fill out a application form for a loan, you put in a lot of information. You put your name, you put your age, you put how much money, how much salary you get over a month. You say how long you've been working for, you put your postcode, you put so much that data, you put how many children you have, if you're married and so on. And you put all that information into that system and it comes out and says, yes, I will make a loan, or no, I will not make a loan to that person who wants to borrow money. Now, I want to say one thing here is the data that the bank asks of you doesn't come as any random event. All that information that comes in and gets put into the system has information. And I want to make a point, all data has information attached to it. And I can tell you, as time has gone by, each bank has built up a huge database of all the variables that will affect the ability of someone to make a loan, to pay back a loan or not pay back a loan. So they run that constantly. The term that we use in data science is machine learning. So the machine or the computer system constantly learns how much information is valid and updates the modeling and the information that is required to see if a person is worthy of a loan. So the banks have been doing this for quite a long time, since 1985, as far as I'm aware, in Australia, when I worked for the bank. So basically, the banks have been doing data analysis, that is using the model to make a prediction, but the information that goes in is actually data science. It's using a huge amount of data to actually show something, give information. There's actually a lot of studies in banking that shows that when you make a bank loan, you create information. So don't think that data science is 100% new. It's been around a little while. It's just expanding to all parts of society, all parts of life. So next. So I want to talk for a little while about something we all know about and how it actually affected MasterCard, and not so much the company, but its marketing. Now, I should have put my card up on there. We've all got a debit card or a Master or a credit card. Some are Visa, some are MasterCard. I want to talk about MasterCard because MasterCard are a really good example of how to use data science. You know, it's quite interesting. If you use MasterCard, and the same goes with Visa, in fact, the same goes with American Express, and I'll give you some information about American Express just as a side issue in a moment. The interesting thing is they know everything about you. They know that I live in Cunningham. They know I go shopping in Farmers Market. They don't know that I go to the wet market because I can't use my debit card there. They know where I shop. They know what I buy. They know the restaurants I go to. They know the movies I go to. And in fact, they know a lot about the apps that you use. They've got a full picture of this. I'll give you a really good example. I was in Bangalore, India a few years ago working, and I was going on to a conference in London, and I got a late message to say that you're not allowed to wear jeans in this conference. Anyone who knows me knows that I wear jeans almost 100% of the time. So I got this message saying you can't wear jeans. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to buy some clothes. Near the hotel that I was staying at was Nautica, so I thought I'd go up there and I'd buy some pants so I wouldn't be in trouble when I arrived in London. The minute I used my MasterCard, literally a minute, MasterCard rang me and they asked where I am. And I said, well, actually, I'm in Bangalore. Correct, they said, which was very funny. And then they said, what shop are you in? Nautica. Oh, that's right. Okay, so that is you who was buying something from India. Yes, that's me. It's a little bit scary. They even knew where I was, so they could find me. Now, interestingly enough, I'll tell you about American Express first. American Express are really good at this as well. And in the late 80s, they developed what they call personalized marketing. Now, if you know anything about American Express, they want you to use their card all the time because they actually make far more fees than what the MasterCard and Visa do. So they're making all this money. So they want you to buy stuff, and I use the word stuff because most of the stuff most of the advertising they sent to me was quite irrelevant. But I got a shock once because I'd started looking at a car, and I don't know what the mechanism is, but they knew I was looking for a car, and from my data, they actually sent me information about what cars would be available for me in my price range. What made it worse is they sent me a picture of the car that they wanted me to buy, which was a Peugeot 307, if you know anything about cars. that might seem like nothing to you, but on the number plate was the name James. So the number plate saying that's the car you're going to buy based on the data that we're getting about you and observed about you. Now, I want to make a very, very bold statement here, is that all the information that MasterCard gather about me is useful, but irrelevant. Now, you're probably wondering why. Why are you talking about it being irrelevant? And here's the reason why. They know I use my MasterCard, and sure, they want me to use it more regularly, etc. But they're more interested about the people who don't use MasterCard and the reason why they don't use MasterCard. So back in 2011, they developed this project where they would actually use social media and data from social media, which they would observe using various computer tools, to actually go out and collect data. And remember that I said right from the start that data has information, and they use that information to gather marketing data so that they could specifically market to various areas. So if we can have the next slide, and this goes one by one, so I want to build up. So they wanted to know not so much about their clientele, the people who were using their cards. They wanted to know about those who weren't using their cards and what they were doing, why they weren't doing it. And they developed, if you take the next line, please. If you take what they were doing, they created the conversation suite. Now, the conversation suite was an algorithm developed by their programmers that would go into social media and capture all the conversations about MasterCard, Visa card, Amex, diners, debit cards, credit cards. It really didn't matter what it was. They wanted to know what people were saying. So they were pulling data, social media data off, and they were using what we call algorithms, which are interrogating the data to come out with conclusions. They weren't building models like I used to do when I first started off in banking. They didn't do predictions. They wanted information about society. So when they interrogated social media, these are the areas that they were doing. Next, please. They used blogs, Weibo in China, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and a number of other different things. So they were collecting information. Now, as PR people, you want to collect information. You want to know what people are thinking. Where is the best place to do that? Obviously in social media, because that's where all the conversations is. I can remember high tech for me at one time when I worked in the bank was a fax machine. My office here at CQU doesn't have a fax machine because it's not needed anymore. So we've gone electronic. We've gone with big data because so much data comes out of these social media. But I think the other thing that we forget too is that we have the computer systems to interrogate that data, to learn something from this data. So if we go to the next slide, we can find the reasons why people didn't like using a debit card, or more specifically a MasterCard. Now, you know, I always tell students when I'm teaching that when I left home and got an apartment, I thought I was doing very well to get a telephone in my apartment. It was fixed to the wall, so when the phone rang, I had to hold it to my ear. And then we had cordless telephones. I had one of the first mobile phones in Australia. If I could tell you here, everyone out there, I would tell you it took 24 hours to charge up for 15 minutes talk time. It couldn't even receive SMSs. But interestingly enough, what people want now of MasterCard and Visa and other payment systems, of which MasterCard is for things to be able to be worked on mobile phone technology. I always like to say, I now have the bank in my pocket, because that's where people are talking about payment systems and being able to pay. Not a card, not a bank account, none of those sorts of things, but through my mobile phone. Now, my mobile phone has all my banking on it. It's got all my communications on it. It's got my Facebook, my Instagram. I make all my payments for it. The last time I was in a bank was actually to replace my card because I'd put the wrong PIN number in and it got sucked into the machine. So the overall thing that they found was that people don't want to use cards. They would want to use mobile phone technology. In Latin America, so we're getting very specific, and in fact, I can tell you that if you look at their data and how they collect it, they know something about what people think about debit cards and credit cards in just about every country in the world. It's a little bit scary in a sense that they know more and more. But in Latin America, so countries like Brazil and Argentina, people were worried about costs. They didn't think the costs were transparent, and they were not that familiar, a lot of people, with the concept of using a card. In Europe, security was the biggest thing. So they wanted to make sure that the card that they were using, or in terms of increasing mobile phone technology, they were more concerned about security than anything else. So when they discovered all this, their marketing, their public relations changed. Now, I want to give you a metric, in a sense, before I give you the last part of the conclusion, and I think I'm getting close to my 20-minute limit. But what were they trying to do? I just want to remind you what they were trying to do. They weren't concerned so much about the people that they had using their card. They were more concerned about getting new markets. So what they had to do is actually convert what we call the skeptics, those who thought they didn't need a card, to getting a card or using mobile phone technology. If we have a look at the next slide, at the next point, using data science to interrogate social media on all the conversations about MasterCard, debit cards and credit cards, they were able to transform 81% of skeptics to users. Now that's a big amount. What it shows to us, and I think Partengu is going to extend on this, is that you're going to be able to understand the person you're trying to reach and convert them to what you want them to do and understand. When I looked at this particular case study several years ago, I was staggered. 81%. I'll leave you with this little thought. If you go to MasterCard head office in the United States, there is a big screen, and that big screen is the conversation suite. There, people are constantly looking at what the conversation is on that screen about MasterCard and regularly changing the message of what they want to get out to society. So I would thank you for listening and hand back to our host.
Okay, thank you, Pak James, for the explanation. Very interesting case study, Pak James, yeah, of the MasterCard, turning skeptics into users using the big data. That's a very interesting case study, Pak James. Okay, next our speaker will be Pak Teguh. I think everybody know Pak Teguh is very famous, very popular, very handsome as well. Wah, nggak apa-apa ya. Okay, Pak Teguh ini current position Chief External Affairs Officer di Antv. Ya Pak Teguh ya?
Ya, betul.
Okay. Yang menarik di sini sebenarnya Pak Teguh itu masuk ke media itu udah sejak sukanya kepada media itu sudah sejak di kuliah. Karena sebagai editor for campus newspaper ya Pak.
Ya.
Oke, oke. Terus yang menarik di sini hobinya Pak Teguh suka sports, music, painting. Benar Pak? Apa yang paintingnya?
Kayaknya nggak match ya.
Oke, silakan Pak Teguh, waktunya saya berikan untuk presentasi.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It's a very difficult time for me to present after James. He's a seasoned man, so it's kind of difficult for me for present. But I will share my screen. Mostly, what I will present is my own experience on how data helped me during my different duty. First, that we all know that how challenging we are to build a customer-centric organization. There is, as you can see, the functional silos inside the organizations prevent us to get a sufficient customer data. And also the problem is insufficient expertise in data analytics. As you can see at below, it's 28%. This coming slide is you all know the strategy for becoming the customer-centric company. So I will skip this one. This one, how to communicate in crisis. As you can see, we should always put the public first. And then at number 4, you should communicate with key publics. But the problem will start when it comes to the number 8. You monitor news coverage, telephone inquiries, and how to define your further information that you want to deliver to public. This circle actually a center of being a PR person or the PR strategist. When you are coping with, for example, in my previous experience, I have to shut down a company operation. That's a very terrible time for me. In order to give a proper message to the audience without telling lies, I should have sufficient data. And how can I get that? First, I have to set a kind of commanding officer for my communication teams. And after that, I should set a crisis center. The crisis center is the one that quite relevant with today's topic. That in my crisis center at that time, I do data mining and data digging in a various way. First, I do using data crawling for monitoring social media, but also I do content analysis in a way from various media, whether it's printed or broadcasting media. And also the not less important is how people on the street talking about my product. So let's come to the number 7, the construction of reality. Whenever you are about to drive an agenda, for my previous experience, that when I have to close a company down to shut our services down, I have to know how people will react about that, how people perceive us. And the funny thing is, when that company shut down. Our operation is being shut down because the technology is not there anymore. The funny thing is my company still have the SWA magazine award for very well-known brand. That's funny because the company is already shut down a couple of months before that. So the perceived reality in the in market is very strong, and I do believe that happened because my team on the ground working very well to dig data and also telling people what is going on about our company. This is the sample of how we can get the sentiment analysis. What you see is a very simple chart, but at the back end, it's not that simple. I pay a lot. I pay a lot for a company to do data mining for me, just to see how the sentiments for each topics, not only for the company. So what I'm doing at that time is I set a couple of topics that important for my company, and we want to know how people perceive for that specific topics. Then I will show you one. Can you see it's moving?
Not yet, Pak Teguh.
Okay. It should move. It should move. But what I'm trying to give.
Pak Teguh boleh di slideshow?
Ini slideshow sudah. Di saya sudah slideshow. Oke. Saya skip yang ini. This chart is only showing how every news outlet, every communications way will interact to each other. Then I go, okay. This one, we call it a word cloud. This is just a couple of years back. When I do help one of the presidential candidates, I'm involved in two presidential election. The first is 2014, and the last one I also involved for different candidate. What you see is a very simple chart that can help us in a glance have an idea what is going on. And so at the next chart, you can see how Ahok at the previous slide and Anies perceive at the public. What I'm trying to tell you guys is whenever we are trying to win an election or we try to sell a product, we should know what people are talking about the candidate, if we are talking about the election or about the product. And in the last presidential campaign, as you can see, this is what the last time before election day. This is the situation just a couple of days before election day. I'm very proud that I can help one of the candidates to gain electability from 0 to 45%. It's a very huge job that I'm quite proud of. What we are doing, what we really dig down to every single target audience, and we try to grab that really matters for that specific audience. And we do specific campaign for the specific audience. And as you can see, this is the situation just a couple of days before voting. I'm not saying that the guys on the right should win the election, no, but what I'm trying to say is Sandi Uno at that time really gained a lot from 0 electability to 45% electability. It's almost impossible, and it's written in an election history in the world. You can see right now I'm taking class at Harvard. Even at Harvard, they are talking about how can be people move from 0 to 45% electabilities. And the last couple of slides, this is an example how we do stakeholder mapping for one of our clients. Today, I'm also coaching one of the company called GrowthMonk. GrowthMonk is a company that do what we call grow hacking. Grow hacking is a process when we are trying to use every single social media and media outlet to get a right trajectory from something that not known for the people to become something that been talk of the town. So if you can see here, I'm showing that Instagram crawling hashtag hypebeast, and we move that data, and this is what we got at the end. Okay, we can see the demographic on the ground. Even we can see how people react for that specific brand. Again, this is not an easy process. What you see all is a simple chart that we can digest in only in a couple of minutes, but behind that process, we do a lot of work, not only data mining, web crawling, but also a lot of surveys. And with this information, I can set which macro influencer that I can use, with micro influencer that I will use, and also what kind of specific word that I should use in a specific campaign. So this is the last slide. I hope it's very useful for you guys, and I'm open for discussion. Whenever you get a question, just shoot me. Thank you.
Oke, Pak Teguh, terima kasih. Thank you for your explanation about the data gathering and analysis. So now we are going to move to question and answer session. Our first question would be how does it relate to it? Actually, how does it relate to ethics from Ibu? From the point of view of customers, how to make sure that his or her data doesn't sold to external parties. From Ibu Lasmiada Bultom, maybe Pak James dulu can answer the question.
I'll just start off. It's a good question because data is everywhere. Some of it is easily secured because if I make a bank loan, the bank's going to keep that confidential, and you need legislation to do that. But what about something in a newspaper or something in a in social media? It's not so secure, and those conversations are easily tapped and acted upon. So if you really want to control it, really do want to control it, you have to legislate the privacy type legislation to make sure that it's private. But there's so much going on these days, it's very difficult to do.
Yeah. Can I add something? But Desi, in my point of view, the slide that I show to the audience, I dig the data from the public data, like social media, newspaper, and also from interview. But the scary thing is, James mentioned earlier, that one of my duty is I am one of the team of tourism destination that Pak Jokowi trying to push the 10 super destination. And at that time, we gather movement data not from specific media outlet, but from movement of the handset. And we can buy it from provider from another country. So the scary thing is, nowadays, the data provider can dig down when you move, where you move, and what you do there. How they do that. As simple as they monitor your signal, your mobile phone signal, and they crawl the data from what you purchase. So like James mentioned earlier, it's a very big challenge for Indonesia for data privacy that they're still working on. The legislative still working on that. But I think in that point of view, we should move faster so everybody can feel protected, but at the same time, the company can also use the data in a good way and not what you call it, criminal way. Okay, thank you, Mbak Kania.
Okay, but that will be hard, Pak Teguh ya, Pak James, how to use the data in a very good manner. Okay. The next question will be how to maintain a suitable program to the aim market. How we could collect much out info from the audience. Silakan Pak James.
Let me just start. I think it's a fair comment to make that sometimes people forget there's got to be a purpose to collecting the information, collecting the data. So really the first step is actually saying, what am I going to use this data for? Because if your data set is so large, you might not actually get any useful information out of it. One thing that I'm wondering if anyone's thinking is I actually mentioned in the MasterCard case study that they weren't really concerned about the customers they have. And the reason is acquiring customers is the hard thing. What you do with the existing customers is make them loyal. So you get all these types of things such as loyalty points, prizes. The other day I got 3 gigabytes of free data from CIMB for using their systems. All those sorts of things. That's actually low cost. Keep them loyal. It's the difficulty in gaining customers in the marketing effort. So a lot of it is around what is the characteristic? What do I need to find out to convert the skeptic to my system, to my product? So a lot of it is about collecting the right data. I'm sure Partinga would agree with that.
Okay, thank you, James. Next, Pak Teguh, maybe you can give some insight as well.
Yeah, specifically in Indonesia, data is not that really good. So we have to have a creative way to gather data. Okay, some of the government official data like BPS sometimes we doubt about data. For example, how people spend their money and so on. So we have to be creative on collecting data and digest it and use it. But the beauty of it, is whenever you got the people, if you can get the right people that can help you to find a creative way for collecting data, then you're already one step ahead from your competition. What we do in my company, I have one company called Layanan Prima Digital. Actually, it's only a call center or a contact center company, but we do a couple of services like we call it a win back program. What we do in win back program, one of our clients, they are losing their fiber optic customer just because another fiber optic provider give a very generous discount. So what we do is we are trying to get all the data that operator already have, and we call it one by one. And the problem is that operator data, some of it is already obsolete, like the number is already changes, the address is not still the same. So we send people on the foot just to get sufficient data. So the key is how can we get the data and always renew the data. If we cannot do, if we cannot renew the data, and then we are doomed actually. So if we want to win the competition, we should always renew our data. In Antv case, we do a lot of off-air activity for our TV program. During that off-air activity, my team always gather data about the audience, and sometimes we do interview with a couple of audience just to get the feel what is really matters for them, not for us. So in data gathering, we should always find what really matters for their side, not the company side. That's it, Bu DK.
Okay. Thank you, Pak James and Pak Teguh. It's very interesting to see that we have different tools for customers side and also for the Pak Teguh, the politician as well. So what would be the pluses and the minuses of each? What do you think, Pak James? From Pak James first and then Pak Teguh. What will be the pluses and the minuses? Mike.
There we go. Sorry, I couldn't get my button to let me loose. Are you, sorry, Abu, are you asking what the pluses and minuses of data science?
Yes.
Or the pluses and minuses of how you approach it?
How you approach it.
Okay, I think Partenga was actually
a practitioner as well as our audiences, and
Yep.
also academician as well. So maybe we can have insight for each segment.
I think one of the things that was interesting about the MasterCard case study, which I didn't mention, is payment systems are very technologically driven. So when they originally started advertising, they said, we've got a really, they didn't say outright, but they said it implicitly, we've got a really good technological solution for your needs, for your banking needs. And to some extent, people are saying, so what? When they became customer driven, they ended up finding what was actually concerning their customer base. Things like security, because cards are all about trust. You know, I trust when I use my card in the ATM that I'll be able to get the money out that I own. So they actually switched from what's great about our company to what's good about you know, what the people were actually talking about. I think all the minuses always for me is having always dealt with data is sometimes you can pick up great data and interpret it wrongly.
Yeah.
So
Agree.
And that's your big danger. The bigger the data set, the more risk you have of actually having a false conclusion. So it's really about tightly controlling what you're trying to actually find out and not have it actually covered by unnecessary data. So I will just put those two points through the starters. I'll let Partinga go, and being an actual practitioner all the time, might know better than I do.
Oke, Pak Teguh, silakan.
Yeah, actually, for political purposes or for commercial purposes, the tool is still the same, but the way we use it slightly different. But the objective is still the same. For the commercial side, our objective is how to win our customer top of mind, so they can buy or use our services. In politics, is how can we get their vote? Still the same, but like Pak James said before, if you get too much data, it could be a garbage. So we should really select what kind of information that we want. Even though we are using an AI, AI nowadays is very sophisticated, but you should set the parameter correctly. And unfortunately, not all the data provider or data analyst is quite capable of doing that. So we should really cater that with how I should call it. We should have a very deep conversation with my people or other party who will do the data collecting for us. So we cannot, so we can get the right data that we want. The usage is still the same, Bu DK. So in politics, I should win people's heart. For example, like I mentioned earlier, Sandiono, we aim directly to emak-emak at that time, and it gained his electability quite significantly, just because we keep telling emak-emak that prices is coming up and we should do something about it, just like that. And all of a sudden we can increase our electability about 15% at that time, 15% only in 2 months. That's a huge achievement that I really proud of, Bu DK.
So from Pak Teguh, insight is data collection, data gathering, plus the good data plus a good data analyst.
I think that Partingu actually makes a good point. Yeah. Maybe he's made it implicitly, but you know, when you've got a whole set of data, the important thing is asking the right questions, rather than not having any boundary around what you're trying to achieve or what you're trying to find out. You've got to ask. You still have to ask the right questions, because that'll lead to you to getting the correct data set.
Yeah. Agree, Pak. Agree.
Okay, another question from Ibu Dara. What key skills and competencies that PR officer need to have in order to collect and analyze the big data properly and to avoid data bias in data analyzation? Silakan Pak James.
Does Partingu want to go first this time? I'm happy to answer the question.
Yeah. For me personally, I will take a student from mass communication that have experience in a media outlet like newspaper, radio, or TV, because they have the feel how they feed information to the public. That's first. But for the data analytic, I take it quite differently. I prefer to get people, how you should refer it, anak yang bandel, the street smart guy, because they are the one who know how to dig data from various sources. So I'm not taking people with like GPA 4.0 GPA, but I most likely I take people who is really street smart. We can see it by whether he is quite active in college or he tried a couple of entrepreneur activity before, or those kind of things. That's from me.
Yeah, I'd just add one thing. I had a conversation with a president director of a bank a little while ago, and this is for the university lecturers who are here at the moment as well. He said in any part of his business, 50% of it is technology. If it's making loans, 50% of it's technology. They've got people developing apps, but with their information processing, they want bankers who have got information technology background so they can make sense of what they're receiving. So you look at any business, well, not every business, but many businesses now, many sectors of the economy, they're relying on data. Even Minister Sahaso, the Bapanas Minister for Economic Planning, actually was quoted not long ago saying, we must make our decisions on data, not gut feeling. What he's saying is you need evidence for everything we're doing. And that's what data science does for you. It gives you that evidence.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Okay, from Pak Teguh's insight is communication science student, but and then also preman. Yeah, Pak James, yeah.
I know what that is.
Okay. Okay. Last question will be, how do you cluster data in crisis circumstances, crisis communication or crisis circumstances, based on stakeholder need or something else? Pak Teguh or Pak James, silakan.
If I can make one point, and I'm sure Parteng actually sees this, your data sets become quite different in crisis. And it doesn't matter what crisis. I know in banking crisis that your data actually becomes almost useless in some circumstances, or very positive because you can see something. I think the important thing is, number one, recognizing that the crisis is there. Number two, recognizing it's saying something through your data. Remember what I said before? Data has information, and that you have to be very wise how to use it in a time that's quite different to other times.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Pak James. Pak Teguh, maybe some insight?
Yeah. Yeah, in crisis situation, it's quite different because in crisis we should move fast. We should move fast. We cannot set new set of data or new parameter. We can only use our existing data. But the problem is, do we really know to whom we are talking to? That's the most important thing. So our previous data, it's only quote unquote defined to whom we are talking to, because each crisis have different specific audience to be taken care of. I have an experience when we are entering what in US called Chapter 11 process. In those period, we should aim our communication directly to the one who have share in our company, but not to the public. Because if we talk to the public, the result might be different. It might be collapsing the whole situation, because that specific company is a public company. So in every crisis, we should define carefully to whom we are talking to. And our previous data only quote unquote useful to define those specific audience and specific needs of them. But the key is we should move really fast.
Okay, so in crisis situation, not only data is important, but timing is also important. Right. Okay, what about data validity? Do we check it or what, Pak? Because just like you said that in crisis situation, it's very fast moving data, and are we able to check their validity?
We should. We should. We should.
How?
That's why setting up the parameter when the company is still in normal situation is very important. If we set the parameter right, we can get the data right. So we doesn't have to validate that very heavily. We just, for example, in my previous experience, we just validate, is he really the shareholder, or is he really holding our share that much? Maybe it's just like that. But the another set of data is already set. So whenever you want to do data digging, setting up the parameter is very important. That's the crucial part. You can take 3, 4, 5 months, 6 months, never mind. But the key is you setting up rightly, and the rest is easier for you.
Okay, Pak James.
Data validity is always a difficult issue. And it means if you really want to know if a conversation is real, you've got to have something to measure it against. In times of crisis, what do you measure it against? And a lot of it becomes experience, and AI comes in and actually helps you with that because it learns as it goes along. It's quick. But data validity is always an issue, and it always will be, I think.
I see. Do we need something to support that as well, like conventional research like FGD or survey, to support the data digging, Teguh and Pak James?
Sorry, could you say that again, please?
Do we need an additional support of methods such as like survey or FGD?
Yeah.
To support that data digging?
Well, it depends on how quickly you need it. Surveys can be notoriously long time to collect and get back. And I think Partengu actually said it's also expensive. But I mean, in business, there's always the cost benefit. How much does it cost me to get this piece of information? And having got it, what is the benefit? So doing a survey might be very useful, but the benefit you get out of the cost of doing it may not actually be worth it. So it's all, I mean, to some extent, it's a balancing act. It's like if you're an auditor, how deeply do I go into the books before the benefit of my actions are wiped out?
Yeah.
Okay, Pak James. Pak Teguh, maybe?
For me, FGD, I use that FGD for validating whatever come up from data mining. For example, in a presidential campaign, we have an enormous amount of data, and to do validating, I do a couple of FGD for specific audience that I want to aim. But Pak James is right, doing a lot of FGD will cost a lot for companies. So my suggestion is do FGD if you want to launch something, or you want to launch a new campaign for specific audience. Do not do that on a very massive scale, because it will take time and also really cost you a lot. Because if you do data mining right, you just need that for validating whatever you that survey come to you.
Okay, thank you, Pak James dan Pak Teguh. Very, very insightful, yeah. So we know that we need skills for doing the data gathering, right? And then that skills will probably be, we need to learn it. Yeah. and most likely that we're going to do a workshop for that as well. Dan Pak James dan Pak Teguh harus bisa jadi pengajarnya, oke?
Insya Allah, dengan senang hati.
Okay, that conclude our session today. Let me get back to Bu Mirana for our next session. Silakan Bu Mirana.
Ya, terima kasih. Thank you so much, Pak James, Mas Teguh. Selanjutnya nanti kita akan ada acara sesi workshop terkait dengan Big Data. Jadi mungkin akan ada informasi berikutnya, Bapak Ibu. Dan jangan lupa untuk mengisi kolom kehadiran hari ini, presensi hari ini, karena nanti akan sertifikat akan dikirimkan kepada email Bapak Ibu semuanya. Mungkin itu saja dari kami. Terima kasih. Thank you so much for your attendance. Thank you and sampai ketemu lagi di kesempatan lagi. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Bu Mirana.
Ya, terima kasih. Thank you so much.
David, Pak James.
Thank you Pak James, thank you Pak Teguh. Thank you Mbak Mirana, Mbak Desi.
Ya, terima kasih Bu.
Mbak Mirana,
Ya.
Mbak Yanti.
Izin live ya Mbak.
Ya, silakan.